We got some stuff to get into today, boys. Ian Hazacostas got into an interview basically going through the Portal Room Q&A, talking back to the community about a bunch of questions. He answered a bunch of questions from people. So we'll get into some of that and what some of the stuff that he said means for WoW going forward. Also, some Season 2 Delve stuff and a little bit of Mythic Plus. So let's get into this stuff. Here we go. The Season 2 Delve boss. If you don't like memory games, and I mean the Lura stuff that we're dealing with right now, you might not like the new Delve Nemesis boss. I mentioned this briefly earlier, but yes, there is a memory game mechanic for our new Delve boss. It is a Simon Says game. So how this thing's going to work, interestingly enough, is, yeah, it's going to be a Simon Says game where stuff's going to be happening, and we're going to have to remember exactly which pane was the safe pane to be able to repeat that shit, or you die. So yes, transferring your memory once again. I guess World of Warcraft's becoming the ultimate Alzheimer's preventative game. Because once you go through that whole mechanic, you're going to have to remember exactly where every single step was, because there are no more symbols showing you where the safe space is. So you're just going to have to remember where the safe spaces were, go through the Simon Says mechanic, and hopefully your memory does not betray you. Yeah, this should be a good one. So we'll see how this one goes on stream. Also, Mythic Plus tuning continues, and this week's a bit different. So there were more nerfs to all the dungeons. We're talking about Den of Nalarak, Murderer's Row, Void Scar Arena, and King's Rest. There were more nerfs to some of the parties in there, but more interesting, there were a bunch of iterations to make things seem more visually easy to depict, right? Easy to see. Blizzard's really putting a lot of work into visuals and making more abilities and things easier for people to see in combat, easier for players to understand what exactly they're supposed to do. We saw all the iterations Blizzard's doing. Bev, thank you so much for the sub, man. I appreciate that. Death Knight Ever Scourge, 2 months subbing now. Thank you so much. As I was saying, we saw the stuff, the iterations on the frontal cones, you know, when one moves with the tank, when there's a frontal cone that's stable and stays still, the edges of things being more clear now. So a lot of that stuff they're doing. They're also doing a lot more with the dungeons themselves. So we see highlights when it comes to who's standing inside of a ring and who's not when it comes to the NPCs, their power-ups and abilities, making things more visually easy to see. We also see here poison pools and things being redesigned, being able to see things better here, and then a lot of other stuff when it comes to nerfing health pools, damage and stuff like that. So again, making these things easier. But again, making things easier to see. I think that's a big W from Blizzard. It's a complaint I've had many times before as a tank about frontal cones, soaks, and other things, and I think they've done a great job iterating on them. Sam edging again, yeah, for sure. Okay, the interview itself. We had a Portal Room Q&A where players submitted questions to Ian Hazacostas. 350 questions in total were submitted, and here were the ones Ian answered. So overall here we'll go by subject, but really we have the 8-week content cadence was the first thing he talked about. Overall, it seems like they're happy with the 8-week content cadence. He said that they're not completely ironcladded on it. So if they have to delay something, they will. But we've seen it before. They really haven't. I mean, we've seen patches that seem pretty half-baked still get released on the 8 weeks cadence. So it does seem like they are hitting those 8 weeks and deciding not to get into that stuff and deciding not to delay patches even if they think they might not be ready. Pre-watched and pre-read, of course, always. The idea was initially in Dragonflight coming out of the expansion, with long stretches of content droughts, which players were clearly unhappy with every 2 months, they said felt about right, both from content perspective and bug fixing perspective, though they acknowledged that it has grown to feel overwhelming for others. I don't know, some people out there maybe think 8 weeks is too quick. I don't mind 8 weeks. I actually think 8 weeks is pretty much on point. It feels about right, but I do mind it when the patch comes out and it's just kind of not really playable for a couple days. I think they could delay it sometimes, and players would be more okay with a 1 week delay and the patch comes out better than some of the stuff that we've gotten recently. Now, he did say, based on a survey, 50% think it's just right, 25% think 8 weeks is too fast, and 25% think it's too slow. Did any of you guys ever get a survey? I never got a survey, so I don't know who they surveyed on this. Maybe it was just random players from the player base. But I think it looks like most people agree with the 8-week cadence being about right. Obviously, something like we saw in Warlords of Draenor, that's not good. Okay, wait, 1 year with no patches, that's probably a game killer. But To me, 8 weeks feels right. We just want them to be a little bit less buggy. Developer communication. Ian got into this a little bit, talking about this Q&A specifically and how they really want to communicate with the players. They enjoy communicating with the players. They like talking to the players, not just about, hey, the next patch or hey, the bugs that are coming out, but also introducing the player base to more people. He got into it a little bit here about introducing the player base maybe to more artists and people behind the scenes that do a lot of the work in World of Warcraft that we've never talked to before. He did ask at the very end, kind of getting into, hey, we would love to hear from you on maybe on who you want to hear from Blizzard. Personally, me, I want to hear from the legend himself, the man who does more work than anybody when every single patch comes out, the currency guy. I want to hear from the artist who does all the currencies in the game. Especially lately, there's that one currency, I don't know, that looks like a little glowing anus. I don't know what he was thinking when he drew that one. But that man has to draw 5 or 6 different currencies every single patch. So I would like to hear from that guy just to see, is he like some kind of dude chained up in a basement just being forced to draw 30 currencies for every single patch? He would be a great one to hear from. Moving on to guilds and player agency. So obviously Blizzard, he gets into this, loves guilds. He thinks they're very important for the game, but he really talked a lot about Discord integration when it came to guilds and how excited he is for that. And this one's been controversial. I made a video about the Discord integration. If you don't know about this already, 12.1 will bring direct Discord integration into the game. Now, obviously, you'll need a Discord account. If you don't have one, you're not going to use it. It's not something that's going to be forced on anybody in any way, but Discord will be directly integrated in the game, meaning you no longer have to leave WoW to join a Discord chat or chat with people in Discord. That stuff can be directly integrated. Good for guilds, really. For random parties, I don't think it's going to be something people really use. We remember the in-game voice chat that Blizzard once introduced. That came and went pretty quick because people just weren't into it. But he is excited for it, and he thinks it's going to be a great thing for the game. As far as player agency goes, really Ian got into a lot of the solo player side of things. He talks about delves and how great it's been for people to be able to do solo content and how players pacing themselves out, making sure that certain pieces of content in the game are not locked behind other pieces of content, basically allowing you to play what you want when you want. I will say, Midnight, I think, has been one of the best expansions when it comes to that. When it comes to just letting you play what you want when you want, giving you multiple ways to earn gear and crests and everything else, I don't think there's ever been a better variety than there has been in Midnight. You want crests, you want gear, and you want to do it solo, go do Prey system, go do the Delve system. Even, oh god, what was that quick system that we had during the patch? I already forgot what they were called because we did them so quickly and they came and went. But the little thing where you do the affixes and you can go in and get some crests that way. There's plenty of ways, what I'm trying to say, to do this game solo if you want to do it, or plenty of ways to do it in groups as well. And yeah, I don't feel like a lot of the content is really gated behind anything right now. If a new player joined the game, I would say the only thing they should do is probably the Omnium Folio quest, and that's it. Yes, ritual sites, DM, that's exactly what I was thinking of. So plenty of ways to play this game, no doubt. So I do agree with a lot with what he's saying here about player agency. He did say that they've tried to do more in-game customizations when it comes to how NPCs interact with you and stuff. And, you know, with this thing about that is we love to kind of create player choice leading to NPC interaction being different in the game, like an NPC acknowledging that you did something or a quest or maybe something about your specific class or spec. We've seen it a lot in Silvermoon, where like if you're a Death Knight and you got into a certain point in the quest line, all the hatred from the Silvermoon people kind of turns into a bit more of admiration where they're not hating on you anymore because you saved the sun well or something like that. Those kind of things are cool. I do think it creates more immersion in the game, but they did say they're a bit limited in terms of, well, you know, at the end of the day, everybody's going to see the same cinematic, so we can't really create too much customization on that side, but we do our best to kind of create more immersive moments in the game where what you've done affects what you see in the game. Also, PvP. Yes, believe it or not, Ian got into PvP here, talking about the inconsistencies with MMR. He said they think it's something that's worked out pretty well for now, but they could have reacted to concerns much quicker when it came to Season 2. Queue times are also an eternal challenge for most PvP games with multiple roles. Most players want to play DPS and solo shuffle, and matches tend to be longer for 2v2 or 3v3 matches on that side. So the internal math, you know, they're working through how to do that. Hey, I mean, at least Blizzard's acknowledging PvP here. I know there's a lot of PvP Andes out there who think Blizzard thinks that's a forgotten game mode. So he goes into saying, overall, though, he wants to talk about PvP talents, saying that PvP is long overdue for some PvP talent updates, which isn't something that they think they'll get in Season 2, but that is on the horizon. Overall, the team is happy with the pacing of PvP rewards, though they would like to improve visibility. Perhaps with something like a renown track to make it more obvious as to where you currently are in terms of earning the next item. As far as the effort that goes into how you earn them, the nature of PvP is rewarding and continues to be a success, proving that players can continue to perform at a specific level. They don't want it to be easy for players to get every bit of stuff, but they're basically getting into, they want to just make it more visual in terms of your ability to see what the hell you're doing in terms of progression on PvP. So interesting stuff there. Collections and remix. Right here, interestingly enough, Ian doubled down once again on Mage Towers. Yeah, Mage Tower stuff, old Mage Tower stuff not being gettable in the game. And look, maybe I have a controversial opinion on this. Ian talks about collectability in the game and how much fun it is for players and how important it is for Blizzard to give people things that are worth collecting, right? Putting stuff in the game that players want. But they also talked about these older items, or these items that were only for specific events. And he says they don't plan on putting a lot of items in the game that do that necessarily. They don't want a lot of items that, hey, you got to get in this patch or you're done. You'll never see it again. They bring back a lot of items via the trading post, different ways to re-earn them, or just never lock them up. You can always go back and get them. But he said those specific, like, performance-based items that were only for a specific thing at a specific time, like the Mage Tower, he says they want to continue to keep them locked. And my solution to this, and I've said it before, the Mage Tower appearances are cool. They're unique, and I get that Blizzard says, well, they were just for that time. It was a limited time event. But just like the remix event came out and went, I think it's fine if they just give us different color iterations on those pieces of gear. Because they're unique, because they're cool, give us a different colorway so that way the ones that originally existed are still special and unique for the people who actually did the stuff and got them at the time that it was relevant. And then everyone else can get some different color iteration on them. Right, some different version of them, so you can at least feel decent in that, hey, that cool piece of gear, I was able to get it, but it's just a different colorway in some way, shape, or form that indicates that you didn't maybe get it when it was live, but you got it later on. We'll see what they keep doing, but yeah, collectibles and stuff, they say, are very important to them in the game. And exclusive rewards as well, as I got into that there a little bit. Professions updates, yeah, Blizzard says the primary professions will continue to evolve. In the long run, there should be more approachability and simplicity. I mean, you guys talk about my confusion with professions. And as a man of the people, I remain confused, like many of the people. I get into professions sometimes, and I don't know what the hell is going on with all the talents and the nodes and the shit and what I need and all that other stuff. And you could call me an idiot, but I just don't interact with the profession system a lot. So whenever I do, I feel like there's a lot there. So he does talk about simplification of professions maybe down the line. He did say that the changes they made in Dragonflight for professions were a success, and I do agree with that. I think professions are in a much better spot than they were previous to Dragonflight. It's good. Yeah, everything confuses you, Sam. True. And learn to read. Yeah, I know. If you dig into professions and you actually try to figure them out, you can. No doubt. But just off-the-cuff approachability, it takes some learning, for sure. But overall, I think Ian basically says that they're pretty happy with professions, but they are looking at making them more simple. Now, one thing I did always like about professions, archaeology, is pretty cool. It was always a fun thing to get into. I always thought archaeology was a lot of fun, but Blizzard kind of dropped it, never really went back to it. Well, he did mention it here. He said archaeology in particular has a great fantasy and lore, but relatively few players were excited by the actual gameplay of it. So I guess I was one of those very few. They'd love to find a new way of delivering the fantasy of researching and discovering lost civilizations with more fun moments and gameplay. So archaeology was trash, Gunka says. I just thought archaeology was like a fun thing to do on the side if you wanted to. Whether or not the mechanics were perfect of it or all, I don't know. But I used to think it was a pretty cool thing. And just the fantasy of being an explorer, going into these ancient ruins in World of Warcraft, and not necessarily just hunting and killing down mobs and pumping through pack after pack, but reading the ruins on the walls and maybe interacting with something that opens up a secret passageway. Like, I always thought that kind of stuff and that fantasy was kind of cool. So if they can bring some of that into the game, that would be nice. Archaeology was so trash. I mean, look, people have their opinions. Maybe someone didn't like archaeology. Final remarks from Ian on this stuff here. He goes, everyone loves a good troll patch and raid. Ian is excited for everyone to jump in and see where the story is going to lead next. He's seen players speculate that this is a complete side story, a distraction from our main goal of pursuing Xal'atath, but there's more in store. He's also excited to see everyone again at BlizzCon and share a lot more information about all things Warcraft at that time. He'd also like to thank the players for their passion, taking the time to spend talking about Warcraft with them. Thank you for the developer Q&A questions and all that stuff. Yeah. And then somebody asked about the puzzling box of Yogg Saron and will it ever be open? And he joked, well, it's already been opened. It's in Hearthstone. So go play that game if you want to see. It gives you 10 random spells. So yeah, funny little joke there. But overall, I do want to say one thing about this closing statement. He said it's going to be fun to share all things Warcraft with you. Notice he didn't say World of Warcraft, right? And we do know, obviously, we got Classic Plus announcement and the Last Titan announcement. Those are for sure going to happen. And I would say both of those are World of Warcraft, right? So when he says intentionally just Warcraft, I think he is intentionally doing that because I do think we're going to get announcements of some sort of show coming out. Maybe, I don't think it's going to be a movie, but some sort of show or series coming out from the Warcraft IP. Maybe the announcement of an RPG at some point. We've heard about the Arthas Menethil RPG. We saw the calendar and everything, the rumors about all that. So maybe we get more Warcraft IP-based stuff. And that's why he didn't say World of Warcraft, but just Warcraft in general. Just nitpick in there a little bit. Interesting remarks for me. And overall, I think a nice interview. And we'll see where all this stuff happens going forward, especially with 12.1. We'll see how successful that patch launch is. And for today, that is all in terms of news.